Today's gospel reading is one of my favorites, and I think it's one that everybody finds very charming. The story of the wedding at Cana and Jesus turning the water into wine. In the Gospel of John, it's the first of his miracles, or as they're called in the Gospel of John, signs. And throughout the whole gospel, he'll perform 7 of those signs. 7 being the number in the Bible, biblical numerology. 7 is the number for perfection or completion. And so that he performs throughout the gospel 7 signs, each one a little bit more intense than the previous one, and bit by bit takes us to a fuller and more perfect understanding, by the time the gospel's ended, of just who he is and what he means in our lives. So those miracles play a very, very important part through the gospel. And they're meant, again, to take us a little bit deeper, step by step, until the gospel's end, we know who he is in a more perfect way. And so because this is the first of those miracles, it's kind of important. It's kind of important to pay attention to it because it will also have a lot to say about where the story is headed and sets the stage for what is to come. At this time in Israel's history, there was an intense expectation for the coming of the Messiah. And they knew that it was bound to happen. And as they were preparing for that, they developed different images which would kind of paint a picture of what it was that they were expecting. They developed images that would say to them and to those who would come after them what this coming of this Messiah was all about, what the Messianic age was all about. And one of the images that they used was that there would be an abundance of wine. An abundance of wine. And you'll see stories throughout the scriptures and images throughout the scriptures of rivers of wine flowing and fountains of wine bubbling and wine being served at the banquet table in the heavenly kingdom. So wine was very, very important. And the Messianic age, there was supposed to be an abundance of wine. Now, if you look at the gospel, and if you do the math, Jesus produced about 180 gallons of wine. Not know about you, but I think that's an abundance. Okay, and I think something is being said. I think we're being taught to pay attention to what's going on here. Wine was very, very important to the people of that time. Wine was like their lifeblood. They called it the blood of the earth. Wine symbolized the spirit, the energy, the spirit within you that makes you alive. Wine basically was life. That's what it meant to them. And all of a sudden, there's Mary saying to Jesus, they have no wine. It's not a request. It's a statement. They have no wine. Because that's what Israel had become. All dried and used up, nothing left, no life within them, just going through the motions. Without meaning it, without feeling it, just being there for the sake of being there, not knowing what they were doing or who they were worshiping or what they were about. They had no wine. If you look also, there's 6 jars. 6 jars of water used for purification. 6, 1 less than 7, which means imperfect, incomplete. And that's where they were at that point. Imperfect and incomplete. And he came to bring about the perfection, the completion, to bring about that age of wine flowing freely, when there would be a life and abundance of life. That's what he said. I've come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. So that's what he was proclaiming by doing this miracle. Talking about the kind of life that they were supposed to have, talking about the kind of life they were supposed to live in him, where everything is perfect and everything is one and everything is holy, and you know who God is and you relate to him and you know him personally. That's what this is about. Jesus' understanding of who he was and what his purpose was, and to teach us to get to know him, to get to become one with him. The goal of life, the goal of spiritual life is union with God. And that's where he's trying to take us in this story. Well, that's all well and good, Father. But why was he so nasty to his mother? Why? Woman, what has this to do with me? First of all, woman was a term of respect, actually. And what you need to do is look back at the book of Genesis, because that's what John is doing. Throughout the early parts of his gospel, he's drawing parallels to the beginning of Genesis. And if you'll notice, there's somebody else called woman. in the book of Genesis, and it's Eve, the mother of creation, and she has something to do with sin and with the state of incompleteness and imperfection that we live in. Now fast forward, the next time that we see Mary in the gospel, and the only time that we see her in the gospel, is when she's standing at the foot of the cross. And looking down from the cross, Jesus says to her, "Woman," and points to the Apostle John and says, "Woman, there is your son." In other words, making her the new Eve, the mother of the new creation, the mother of the new people of God. Because that's who he came to create. That's what he came to establish, was the new kingdom, the new Israel, the new people of God. Those 6 jars full of water for purification no longer needed. They no longer needed to go through all these purification rituals because now they're being made clean in his blood. In his blood. And so many times, wine was a symbol of that, wasn't it? So that's what he came to do, to bring us to the new creation, to bring us to that new perfection that we're all called to. And so you say, how? What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to be? How are we supposed to accomplish this? Very simple. Listen one more time to his mother. Listen one more time to the mother of the new people of God. Listen as she says, "Do whatever he tells you." Those are her last recorded words in the New Testament. Do whatever he tells you. If we do that, we'll discover him. If we do that, we'll find him. If we do that, we'll become his people, and we'll find new life and new wine flowing within us, making us whole, bringing us to the perfection that we're called to experience. If this life is all that we have, why bother? There's supposed to be something more. Jesus came doing something new, doing something better, and bit by bit replaced all those different Jewish ceremonies and customs with new ceremonies, new customs that are supposed to take us deeper, into the understanding of who he is and why we follow him. That's what he was doing in this miracle and all the miracles that will follow, is establishing just who and what he was and how it is that we're supposed to adhere to him. As I said, there were 7 miracles, 7 signs that he performed throughout the gospel. But he didn't want to stop at perfection. So he went one more than perfection. He went one more than perfect and was risen from the dead. Risen from the dead. He saved the best until last, didn't he? The best until last. Let no one say of us, they have no wine. They have no life. Because we know now where to look for it, where to find it, and how to come alive in him and among each other. Let no one say they have no wine. Amen.